that's what I
side.
thought. I need those new
It's,
glasses.
she's got quite,
Yeah, I think Yep. And it came on, so, yes, that should work.
much service in here. We're like a resource guide in here. I mean, it's, and she had a logo made.
How are the girls enjoying school?
Of the county. But she's busted it. Yeah.
I'm like, here's my calculus.
She gave some, I mean, these are some
Start
of the
reading.
people she donated money to, and she's,
Because they never have like American.
yeah,
They
it's
just
really
go-
cool. Yeah,
Look forward to the 6th.
Oh, great.
yeah.
They're both in sixth.
That's what I thought.
Youngest, she could probably go another grade up and still be fine. And my, oldest, she could have done it, but she didn't want to they were friends.
Yeah, nice.
So I'm like, you guys are bored. I got plenty of homework for you guys to share. Because I'm still finishing my degree.
Yeah.
So
Section who's getting, do you want me to put these in a section?
there's a
No, they
lecture on
can just go
calculus.
back. It's just consent agenda items.
Thank goodness they're girls, and they're probably not gonna get themselves in trouble, because they're not, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
They might be,
Because like my oldest, she does dive, so she starts her dive back again this week, so she's all excited. And then she just plays with 3D printer and got little trinkets and toys everywhere. She messes around
Because,
with that.
yeah, self-taught, I mean,
yeah.
that was just like, this
Yeah,
week I
we're
was
fine.
changing the, I learned how to put a new recoil thing in the rotor tiller. I changed the
good.
cartridge in the
All right.
shower head. I was like, I gotta figure out how to do this, just get on YouTube and just figure it out. That's what I do.
School board meeting will now come to order. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Yes, I would like to move or make a motion to add the fundraising proposal to the agenda this evening.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Move proper second. Any question? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. Next, we have public announcements. Okay. September 19th, end of first quarter interim grading period, early release for students. September the 24th, quarter one interim report issues. October the 13th will be the next regular school board meeting here at St. Clair Walker at 6:30. Okay. Next, we have recognitions by superintendent.
Yes, and so this evening, I would like to introduce to you all our new student representative for the year. We have Caitlin Hargrove joining us for the school year. Caitlin is a senior. She is also a student at the Chesapeake Bay Governor School. In addition, Caitlin is vice president of the National Honor Society and president of Middlesex High School DECA chapter. She is a volleyball player, and she has played volleyball for Middlesex since 8th grade, and she's also in her 5th year as a Charger cheerleader. She is a member of the Student Government Association and the Spanish Honor Society, of which she is president this year. And so we're excited for Caitlin to join us. I know that you all are also.
Caitlin, would you like to have a word?
Nothing like putting you on the spot from the very beginning.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really excited to get started.
Thank you for being willing to be a part. Okay,
That is it for recognitions, yes.
all right. Next, we'll have public comment. The floor is now open for public comment.
We do not have anyone signed up.
Have anyone? Public comment is now closed. Board member, committee reports.
I'll start. The Middlesex Foundation, for that committee, funds and grant application process, all of that is still in the works through Bay Aging. The foundation at this time has kind of decided to meet on a less frequent basis because, the direction of the foundation wasn't really moving in a way that was benefiting anybody. So right now, Bay Aging will continue to look for funding opportunity. They have done a lot of work in that area for affordable housing accommodations here in the county. So that work will continue, and as that project gets closer, the foundation will look at ways that they can support. So that's it for me.
Dr. Brennan?
The Chesapeake Bay Governor's School Joint Board will meet on the 18th of this month. That'll be our first meeting of the school year.
I have nothing.
The regional special ed meeting is tomorrow morning, so
That you will preside as chair.
I will preside as chair. This is gonna be fun.
Okay, and I have nothing at this time. All right. Well, next we have an action item.
Yes, so we've got some policy revisions
Second read.
that you are seeing on second read. Policy DJF, purchasing procedures, JFC, student conduct, and KBA, request for public records. These policies were presented last month for first read, and there have been no changes since last month's discussion. So I do bring them to you for approval of second read or any other additional discussion if you'd like to have that.
Could I have a motion?
So
Second.
moved.
Moving properly second. Thomas, your second?
It don't matter.
Okay. All right.
I have a comment. if I
All right, that's
may.
what I was going to go. Any comments?
I have one comment on JFC. Talked to Dr. Seitz about my concern about the trespassing part of the student conduct policy on page 4. I would like to see some reference to a definition of what we mean by trespassing for students. This particular part of the policy includes both students and students who have been suspended or expelled. I'm not concerned about prohibiting students who have been suspended or expelled from our campus, but I am concerned about how trespassing would be defined for currently enrolled students. And so I think what we need to do there is to find a definition and link it to this policy, which should not be difficult. But I'm going to vote to support this and then ask for a modification of it with the link at our next meeting.
Okay. Dr. Seitz, you okay with that?
Yes, I would say, and Dr. Burnett and I talked a little bit right before this meeting. This policy references several codes, and I did not have the time to go and research all of those codes to make sure that we are in line with what the policy has, because it just says trespassing, that if students are trespassing, they will be prosecuted, because trespassing is illegal. And I know my understanding is that Dr. Burnett was looking for a specific definition of what trespassing is. I think sometimes you don't want to put necessarily all the specifics in there, because it can hold you to only certain events or not certain events. But I certainly understand the question of when is a student trespassing on school property, which I think is what led to the question that Dr. Burnett had. So I'm happy to research what the code says and additional other school division policies and bring that information back next month for discussion.
Okay. You okay with that, Dr. Brennan?
I am.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. It has been moved and second. Question has been answered. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. Okay? All righty. Next we have information items. Let's see, preliminary SOL results.
Yes, so Dr. Burnett, not Dr. Burnett, Dr. Bishop. And Dr. Bishop, I'm gonna hand you this, because I have to be in control of it now. This is gonna need to go down to Dr. Bishop. We're gonna, let me pass these things down on what you're receiving so that you're able to see them. So what Dr. Bishop is going to review and go over with you in the first part of this are our pass rates for the, overall for the division, and then overall in reading, math, science, and history for each of the schools. I will tell you that it's incomplete data when we look at the accountability system and how we're being measured this year, because if you remember, that's being separated. Accreditation and accountability are being separated out. And it is the school performance and support framework that we will receive a final number in the category of where that fits. So the only thing that we have received so far from VDOE are these pass rates that Dr. Bishop is going to review with you. I can tell you that they're not rates that you've seen in the past the way that we've presented them, because we've always been able to, or since I've been superintendent, I can say, we've been able to present pass rates that at the elementary and middle school included growth and recovery. With this new framework, growth is going to be a separate component, and it's going to be in the readiness category, and we have not seen those numbers yet. We will see them sometime before the end of September. And recovery, which meant a student had not passed previous year but passed this year, and there was technically some extra credit that was given in that pass, is no longer an option in the framework. We are still required to code students as recovery because it's part of the Code of Virginia. However, it is no longer, schools will no longer be given credit for it in that. And so this review that he's giving you is what is found on the VDOE school quality profile page, and it's information that has been released to the public, so we felt it was important to at least review this data with you while we're waiting on all of the information that will represent our accountability framework. So with that,
All
Dr.
right.
Bishop, I will turn it
I
over
am
to
going to
you.
go through the division, then MES, SCW, St. Clair Walker, and then MHS scores. I'll start with the division. And again, these are the overall scores that we have for the division compared for 3 years, 22, 23, 24, all the way to 24, 25 for reading and math. And these are for the grades 3 through 8, grades 3 through 8 being tested, and also end of course assessments at the high school. So these are combined pass rates for reading and math at the division level. The next slide, it's science and history. So as we go through these slides, we'll probably go math and reading, then science and history. And these science and history slides, scores are for science in 4th grade, science in 5th grade, science in 8th grade, and then end of course science scores, and then history in 4th grade, history in 8th grade, and then end of course. End of course, I'm talking about high school classes. And those are the division scores of 72% for science and 71% pass rate for history. The next is, stop me if you want me to clarify, please do. The next is for reading and math for Middlesex Elementary School. These are compared across all 3 years. Middlesex Elementary School for grades 3 through 5, and math in grades 3 through 5. And last year we had a 65% pass rate in reading and a 65% pass rate in math. The next slides are students at MES who take the science test in 5th grade, covering living systems, earth and space systems, force, energy, and motion, and earth resources. And in grade 4, students take the Virginia Studies History. So those are one test, one grade level that you're seeing here. And that's 62% and 63%. At St. Clair Walker, our reading and math scores, this is for reading for reading in grades 6 through 8 and math in grades 6 through 8. And we had a few students in Algebra 1 who also were tested in Algebra 1 in those scores. Although it's an end-of-course test, it does count for St. Clair Walker. So that's 72% pass rate in reading and a 69% pass rate in math. And then for science and history at St. Clair Walker, we have this is science taught in grades 6, 7, and 8. It's cumulative. It's from the solar system in 6th grade to life science in 7th grade to chemistry in 8th grade. So that is 3 years of content. That's a 90% pass rate. And then for history, that is civics and economics. That is the one test in 8th grade. So both the 8th graders take reading, math, science, and history. So none of the students right now, as you know, we don't have a writing score because we're not tested in writing on an SOL exam in grades, we were in grades 5 through 8. That is no longer the case. Not that we don't teach writing, but that's not being tested in that case. So this is for Middlesex High School. Reading is taken in 11th grade and also in 12th grade if the students do not pass it. Scores are combined, so this is for everybody who took reading in the year 24-25 school year. It had a 90% pass rate at MHS. And for math, the math scores are mostly Algebra 1 scores for students in 9th grade. There are a handful of geometry scores. Those students who may not have passed Algebra 1 in 9th grade, or those students who took Algebra 1 in 8th grade, but you still need to take an end-of-course test in high school. So they would take Algebra 1 there too, or a geometry. There's also possibly Algebra 2 scores in here. And then Middlesex High School for science. This is a combined scores of biology, environmental science, and a few chemistry scores. The bulk of these scores are biology, which is taken in 10th grade. Biology is the federal indicator. That is the only test on the school performance and support framework that is going to be measured. But these are all of our combined scores this year for science, and it was a 66% pass rate. And then history was a 66% pass rate, and that's World History 1. So that's all the way up to the Renaissance for those students, the dawn of man to the Renaissance. And then there's also some students who take World History 2. Many of the students who take World History 2 are those that didn't pass World History 1. And then the final SOL was writing at MHS. And the writing scores, this is the students in grade 11 take the writing assessment, and that's a 77% pass rate. Before I move to attendance, are there any questions? Dr. Burnett.
It would be helpful if we could see how this compares statewide. Will that data be available?
It is available on our school quality index, but we're really focused on right now on our own scores. We will share that information as we're focusing on the school performance and support framework as well. Yes.
So by percentile, how complete is this? Where do we stand as far as, are these final numbers or are these?
These are final numbers in terms of pass rates.
Okay.
These are the final numbers. We consider it to be raw data because there's no growth and recovery baked into this as it typically has been in the past, and that's why they're shown differently. That will come out with the school performance and support framework, which will be out in October.
Well, so, and a couple of other pieces are that there's some other alternative assessments that at the high school counted, and we were able to use those in what we've presented before, and we're not able, that's not included in this data.
Right.
And so this is official SOL pass rates. And so last year, when I presented information, it included growth recovery, it included those alternative assessments that we were able to use at the high school. And when I presented it last year, I said, this is the best data we've seen since pre-COVID. I would argue that you're seeing the same thing, it just looks very differently, and these numbers don't, I think, look as attractive as the numbers that you saw last year without getting into what that presentation looks like. Where we are now is that the school performance framework, and I think if you remember, I forget how many months ago it was, we had a work session on the performance framework, how they're separating out accountability and accreditation. Accreditation is we're meeting all of our drills, we have all of our teachers, we have all of those, schedules and bus routes and things, and that's gonna fall under accreditation. Accountability is gonna be 100% test scores and graduation rate and attendance will be measured there. There are some other readiness skills that the VDOE wanted elementary and middle schools to be evaluated on, but they have been unable to produce those assessments, and so I think that's gonna be a wash, and what they've gotta do now is move those percentages into other areas so that they've got a 100% for all the things that they are measuring. The unfortunate thing is that we can give you this data. We are in line with state numbers, I can tell you that, and we can give you this data. It means nothing to any of us or our principals or to you on where we stand for accountability, because we haven't seen the growth measures yet. We were told that we would see them mid-August, and that was the way they're measuring growth for the 24-25 school year was new to us, and they used the system VIVAS. And our data goes to VIVAS, and then VIVAS calculates the expected growth for each individual student. So there was not a way for us to know what each individual student should score in order to make growth. And students can make growth even if they did not pass the assessment based on how much they grew and based on their past data. They could also show growth if they did pass the assessment. And so that goes into a different component of the framework. We don't have that data yet, and VDOE, I'll just use the term, is withholding it until they get the final report ready, which we're supposed to have by the end of September. We've been told that we'll get a week to review that information before it's made public, and so that we can determine if there are any errors in it. We got a little bit of this ahead of time, and there were some things that we questioned on our end and communicated with VDOE to make sure we had the right numbers. And so these are the SOL pass rates. Like I said, unfortunately, I don't have a way to tell you, we don't have a way to tell you whether this means our schools are on track, off track, distinguished, or any of those things until we get the rest of that data, which is kind of one of the slides that I'm going to talk about when we get there.
Will the growth data have a cumulative element as well?
Yes.
I have a question. So
Yes.
in some of these, like for example, if it's 62% or 63%, what happens? So there's obviously 30%-ish.
Right. And I can jump ahead to that if you want us to hit. I think we're at the point where I'm talking about where we are, what we're missing, and what our steps are right now. So let's just talk about chronic absenteeism,
Yeah,
I think.
quickly,
We
yeah.
can go into that and
Moving-
still come back to this data to have discussions.
Yeah, we'll move to chronic absenteeism and then go, because that's going to be part of the school performance support framework as well. So as you can see in 23, it was 25% had chronic absent. So students missing 10% or more of the days, they could be here for 100 days, not the full school year, but miss 10 days, that student would be considered chronically absent. They don't have to be here for the entire year in order to be on that chart. And then in 24-25, we have about 15.1% of our students who are chronically absent. We are working hard to get that down, trying to have more engaging classrooms consistently, rewards, making sure that the parents are aware of the importance of attendance. That's pre-COVID number of about 15% is a pre-COVID chronic absenteeism number on an average. Of course, this is not good enough for us. We would like to get it down. I mean, a sweet spot would be 10% if I could make not that that's the best either, but that would be a good thing to.
If a student misses part of a day, does that factor into this
No,
number?
it doesn't.
Okay.
They can be here for, they come to school, they're here for half an hour and they feel sick, they go home, that would count as a day because they did attempt to come to school.
Okay.
So they don't have to be here for any length of time. We want them to be here the whole day, but, those are things that come up. And parents sometimes send their kids because they do value attendance, but then we have to kind of draw the line like, okay, so it's not working because you're sick, you need to go home.
Yeah, that's
So
what I was
I
wondering.
appreciate that balance that we
Yeah.
work with parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say our administrators and our teachers have done a great job in addressing this and helping parents understand. I know I've said it at multiple school board meetings, but it doesn't matter the reason the student's absent. And so I've had parents say, and I've said I had a conversation, your child was chronically absent. The parent said, but some of those were excused, and I said, but it doesn't matter. In the state's eyes, it doesn't matter, excused, unexcused, suspended, all of those things factor into missing 10% or more of the school year. And so the state average is 15.9, we are 15.1, and as Dr. Bishop said, across the nation, pre-pandemic, chronic absenteeism was about 15%. So we're back where we were pre-pandemic, because that's what caused a lot of this also. But it doesn't mean that we feel like we're there. We're still working on it.
Very nice trend. Good-
Yes.
Good trend.
Good trend.
And
Good
I-
trend.
And I know it's a team effort.
It is
so
very much a team
congratulations to
effort.
everybody.
Paying attention to. And
For
we've
every
got-
child.
We've got good trends, and so as we look at this, we still call it raw, but it is official SOL data. We see the reading trend, maybe it's 1 tick or 2 ticks, but there is a tick up. Mathematics, you'll see some dips, and some of the things we've talked about are that new standards for reading and mathematics and new assessments for reading and mathematics. And no one gets to see what those assessments look like prior to them being given. And even when teachers administer them, they're not supposed to look at the assessment. And so it's a little bit of you're a little bit blind going into that and trying to prepare students for those assessments. And for mathematics, TestNav is one of the test prep programs that we use, but the practice items were not released until February, and then our students start testing in May, and so a little bit of a learning curve there. So now we've seen some of this data, and we've seen some of the things on where we need to go. First, I want to hit on where we're missing things, which is going to be a little bit of a recap, and then I want to go into what we already know that we're working on now. And so, as I mentioned, growth data at the elementary school and at the middle school, and that'll be for 4th through 8th graders. And what we've seen in the past few years is that the amount of growth our students made was pretty phenomenal, and that's what helped our scores. What we don't know is what it'll look like this year, because as I mentioned, the VIVAS system, that all of that data is put into. Now, the interesting piece of that is that the General Assembly did not fund VIVAS for the next fiscal year, which we are currently in. So what we're going to see for growth when we do finally get it will look totally different for next year, because VDOE will not be using that system anymore. And so now VDOE is in the process of figuring out how they will measure growth, starting with the 25-26 assessments.
And how we'll get that data too, because VIVAS has a user interface, which is very powerful, but we'll get it back in spreadsheets, so we have to parse that data out.
Right, so we don't have that. We do have our chronic absenteeism data. I mentioned that there were some other performance tasks for the elementary and middle school, but VDOE never created those tasks, and so they'll shift the percentages, because there's a percentage, everything is, mastery is a certain percent, and that's the pass on the SOL, and then everything else falls into readiness and graduation, and those percentages will now get manipulated. They get manipulated even more for Middlesex County Public Schools because of our English language scores. If you don't have 15 students in a category, it's not reportable because it's too small, and it does not factor into the performance framework, even if your students do exceptionally well. So that percentage will get moved. That happens to us for the advanced coursework in middle school. The requirement was that the way VDOE was going to measure advanced coursework is that if a student scored pass advanced on the 7th grade math SOL, they should be in algebra for 8th grade. And so we did have all of our students in algebra in 8th grade that scored pass advanced in their 7th grade year. They all scored 100%. which we knew that they would, but because it's below 15, it doesn't get reported in that category. And so the percentage, I even pushed back at VDOE on the English language piece and said, we're not gonna get credit because our students did really well because we have below 15. Yes, that is correct. And so the percentage, and it does, it'll move your overall performance scores a little bit like that.
And it weights into other categories like mastery or growth.
Yeah, it goes into other categories. So those are two areas that don't count. We also don't have the 3E readiness components completely finalized. The Board of Education voted on them in May, and that went into effect in May. At the same time, we were finishing senior year and graduating. And so they are still finalizing that algorithm. There are less, I will say less, some of the things that we had in place where students were meeting that career and technical education, there are less opportunities for that or less options. And so the high school has been really good about shifting and making sure that students are taking advantage of the options that now count in the 3E readiness framework. But we are still waiting for that data. So we're hopeful that in the next week or two, we'll get to see some of that preliminary data, and then it will be finalized by the state. The state is projecting that it is made public by the end of September, and so when we come back in October, we can give you a more complete picture of where we are with the performance framework and accountability. So what we're not waiting on, if we look at our, you have the clicker, we'll click the
Roadmap.
roadmap.
Yep.
To the roadmap. And so we, being Dr. Bishop and I, have held meetings with each of our principals, and our literacy and mathematics specialists are in on those meetings. And so we're reviewing the current data, looking at where we are, what skills we're still looking at. Again, as a reminder, these are updated standards and they are new assessments. In the governor's press release, which I guess was about a week ago, he reported that the tests were 30 to 40% more difficult. So here's what we don't know, is if they were really 30 to 40% more difficult, or if it was 30 to 40% more information that are included in those standards that they had to know on the test, because it's reported two different ways, looking on the slides from the governor's office. We do believe that there was more difficulty to the test, because a lot of the options now in the test, it's not answering one question, it's multiple pieces to it. And everything has to be answered in order for the problem to be answered correctly. And so part of what we have identified is, we'll call it literacy assessment, and that our students, especially our 8-year-olds, because that's 3rd grade, when they're 8 years old, that they really need to be understanding, and our teachers need to be understanding how to approach the test. It's not teaching to the test, but they need to know how to understand, or they need to understand how to take a test that they've not been presented with before. And so some of those plans are already in place. This is our 4th week of school, and we've already put them into place. We reviewed when we specifically look at deeper learning, and we look at our practices, and we identified these things this summer, and what we're working with principals on is that our assessments and our curriculum need to be aligned. And in addition to that is that we need to reinforce that our teachers know the content and the expectations of the standards that they are teaching. They have been updated. It's been a lot of changes. It's been a lot of work for our teachers, but we are here to provide that support so that we can ensure what is in that standard is being taught to that level and is being assessed on that level, so we can identify early on if we've got gaps. So we're building in some different assessments. In the past, we've been using math assessments, and we have found that they were not completely aligned to the SOL standards, and we depended on some of that data to identify students who needed some specific skill development, and then we had students that were not successful in passing that were not, I'll say, not on the radar of that assessment, which we had depended on. And so we have not renewed that contract. We've gone back to the benchmark assessments that the state is providing us that are aligned to the SOLs, and so we'll be using that data. The other piece is, and you all have been, have been the ones that have approved adoption of certain curriculums. The other piece is to ensure that the curriculum that has been adopted is what is in use every day in every classroom that we've adopted that curriculum for. There is no, I'll just say this, we want to move away from teachers pay teachers to this is the adopted vetted curriculum. It's approved by the Virginia Department of Education, and this is what needs to be taught in the classrooms. And then lastly, ensuring that our administrators have that time to get into those classrooms and perform observations, whether they're your quick walkthroughs that teachers are getting feedback for, or they're the longer, more evaluative observations. Dr. Bishop participated in some of those today. We've had our principals already identify those times on their calendars, and so that teams are going in to observe and ensuring that pacing is on course, because that's important, that the curriculum is being followed, and that the standards, the current standards, are what are being taught. In addition to that, of course, we are identifying what additional services and skills and resources our students do need so that we can provide those things in a timely manner. And so we bring you this data, tell you we're waiting on additional data, but it doesn't mean we're waiting to start to put things into action that we know we need to address. And so with that, I'm still happy to answer some other questions. We had some great shout outs here. Our high school reading and mathematics scores were great. Algebra 1 at the high school was a 97% pass rate. Our 8th grade science and 8th grade history, we saw scores that we had not seen before. Chronic absenteeism, the elementary school had the biggest drop. I think they dropped down to 10% of their kids were chronically absent, and these are our little ones that typically you see a higher, in the early years, you'll see a higher chronic. So at all three levels, there's been great gains and improvements. We just don't have all of the data to share with you.
Even the trends in these raw data, it shows an upward trend,
Yes.
if you look at it. It is, we're in the right place, we have the right things in place, and we have the people who know what they are, and we're helping the teachers and support the teachers and making sure that they use the high-quality instructional materials and really have a sense of urgency in the classroom day one. So, and we see that in our classrooms.
Any more
Any other
questions?
questions?
I got one.
Okay.
So the math and tests and reading tests, are they given in a different style or format than like the history and science? Because I've noticed like some of these, like St. Clair Walker, the science and history, we scored pretty well. And then like reading and math are significantly lower. Are they given
what-
us different rate?
So I can tell you the difference what you're looking at there. And so science and history at the middle school is 8th grade. What you're not seeing are the other 8th grade scores. You're seeing a combined
Right.
6, 7, and 8. I can tell you that the 8th grade scores in math and reading were also in comparison to science. But the tests are different. So reading is computer adaptive and math is computer adaptive also. And so what that means is that as the student answers the question, if they get things wrong, it'll come down like this, the next questions, and if they are answering correctly, it will continue to move. And so it is providing them questions that are more on their level. Science and history is straightforward.
questions, yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
straightforward.
that's what I was wondering, because you said that they have to answer one portion correct to keep moving, and if they get one wrong,
Yeah,
that's why.
it'll adjust based
Yeah.
on their answers.
Because I figure math, or history and science is pretty much,
Yeah.
pretty much,
Just go to the next question.
yeah.
Yes.
And Tracy mentioned TestNav too. That's basically on your computer what a SOL test would look like with all the different technologically enhanced items, which we call TEIs. So they're manipulating on the screen. So we really have to make sure that students understand how to take a test, right? Teaching to the test that they need to know how to take these TEIs and take this to demonstrate what they know.
And you said this is the first year that we've had those tests, correct? That style of
These
test?
type of questions,
Yes.
Some of them.
There's some of them, yeah. We've had TEIs before, but we're having more and different TEIs, and we'll have more next year as well.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you. Next, we have school safety.
Yes, and so I want to give you an update of the information that we reviewed with all of our faculty and staff at the beginning of the year. It's a document that looks like this, and I think it's in your packet or in your closed session, but I'm gonna review it quickly, and Hassan's gonna get it up there on the, there we go. And flip through this. And so what we did was highlight all of the practices that we have in place without going into lots of details. And so the Evolve system, I'll start with that. That is our security system that everyone walks through, staff and visitors. It is at the front entrance of all 3 of our schools. This is our 3rd year with that system, and it has worked very well. ID badges, all of our staff have IDs. I meant to bring you mine as an example, but I threw it in a bag somewhere else. We do require staff to wear those. On the front of it, it identifies who they are, and then the back of it, when I get to the standard response protocol, I can explain what's on the back of that. But that's to help, especially our students or anyone else, if you're in a different building, identify who staff members are, and if you don't see that and there's not a visitor's badge, then potentially we could have an intruder in any of our buildings. Classroom doors, all of our classroom doors now have the key fobbed locks, and all of those doors stay locked at all time. That's an automatic thing, and they are required to be closed when teachers and children are in those classrooms and teaching is going on. And that's it's just another layer that if we were to go into a lockdown or anything like that, no one has to go shut a door. The door stays closed and the door is locked. The Raptor system, that's our visitor scanner ID system. We do have that at all 3 schools, and an ID is required for that, and what it does is it will run any individual that's signing in through the sex offender registry. Last year, we did allow someone coming in, if they didn't have an ID with them, we did allow them to manually enter, but we ran into some issues with that, so we are requiring everyone to have an ID at this time. If anything goes wrong with the system during check-in, because sometimes there's a little glitch, our admin assistants are able to manually put that information in so that we still do the run through the registry like we need to do. Drills, we go over all of the drills with our staff. There's tornado, fire, lockdowns, earthquake. We will be doing cardiac response drills this year, and the whole intent of that is to practice automation so that if there is a true emergency, you kind of have a first response on where I'm going to go, where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do, and then you can think through the rest of the things in an emergency. We have AED machines and we have Stop the Bleed kits at all 3 of our schools. We ask our faculty and staff to run through and identify where they are in the case of an emergency if they need to act quickly and get them, but we do have them positioned in all of our schools, and actually I think we have more than technically is supposed to be required. I think we may have used ESSER funds to purchase some more of those things and purchase the Stop the Bleed kits. And so then back up to the top, all of our staff are required, obviously everybody comes in the front door every morning, but if they have to step out for something else, staff and student included are to come back in through the front doors. That's our protocol in entering our school buildings all of the time. I mentioned that our classroom doors are locked, and it's a cyber lock system, and we'll talk about fobs for those, and that's the way that it's a quick click and anyone can enter their classroom that way. And so those are, the way we hand out our IDs now is that fobs go on the back of them in a little packet. There's their ID, their fob is in there, and then I'll go over the standard response protocol so that staff have them on their person all of the time when they are in their buildings. Digital mapping, this was something that we put in place just 2 or 3 years ago maybe. The governor made some monies available to school divisions to have their whole schools mapped out, and so that information's given to the emergency services departments. And so if there were an event in a building, they've got a grid that they can look at to help identify where they need to go first as their first response, and those are updated each year with our classrooms are numbered, doors are numbered, windows are numbered, and so that helps our emergency response teams. Visitors, we remind our staff that as they key into our buildings, not to let any other visitors in, and that they go through the protocol of the Raptor system, which is in place and is being used very well. New this year, we have a cardiac emergency response team. Dr. Bishop has taken the lead on that and getting people in the building certified for some of those responses, and then practicing some drills on that also. And then the items that we stock in our school nurses' offices are epinephrine, albuterol, and insulin. And that is it's a standard stock that it will be used for anyone who the nurses determine are in need of that emergency medication at their time. And there's training provided to the nurses and other staff members to administer that. And then lastly, you'll see across the bottom, this is a standard response protocol, and this is what MCPS has adopted and we follow. Many K-12 school divisions around the nation follow it. All of our classrooms have this in an emergency take action poster, and this is also on the back of all of our teachers and staff ID badges as a quick, if I'm here, she said lockdown, I can't remember what that means type thing. And so I'll just quickly review them. A hold means just to stay in your room and keep the hallways clear. And continue business as usual. There's no reason to stop teaching. There's no reason to do anything different. For example, there could be a medical incident with a student or an adult in the hallway, and we're asking everyone to stay in the classroom and not be in the way there and not expose maybe younger kids to something that might be going on out there. A secure is if we've got the, students outside and we've identified something outside, either on our school campuses or on the perimeter of our campuses, and that is to return to the inside of the building. Lock outside doors is what's on there, but our doors are automatically locked anyway, but it's get back inside of the building. And so an example may be someone's hunting near the school and they can hear gunshots, things like that. There's not anything on campus that's been identified, but it's get into the school, business as usual until you're given any other notification. Lockdown is probably our most severe, and for us, that's locks, lights, out of sight. And so I have already shared that all of our classroom doors are automatically locked. So that's an easy one step we've taken away there. Nobody's going to a door to lock a door. Lights are out, and then students position themselves by the direction of the adult that they're out of sight of someone looking into a doorway. And that would be if there is an intruder within the building, when an administration would have to call for a lockdown. Evacuate, and that obviously means what it says, is that you're evacuating the building. And so whether it could be a bomb threat, there could be a chemical hazard, something like that, when students have to be removed from the building to a separate location. And then the last one is shelter. And so that would be related to all of the most of the drills that are practiced. So there's a tornado, and everyone knows what that looks like, up against the wall, down, head covered, those types of things, earthquake, any of those things, that would be a shelter in place. And so again, it's called the Standard Response Protocol. This is what we've trained all of our faculty and staff on, and it is the protocol that's used in many schools around the nation. And so this was just to give you an update and a review of the layers of things that we do have in place to keep our students and our staff safe. And I'm happy to answer any questions about any of these things.
I know we spoke about it in the past, so like the bleed kit, and we've talked about tourniquet training before.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that set up for the wood shop?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Because I wanted to say that would be the key area.
Yeah, you would think that something's gonna happen.
Mhm.
Do that right away.
Yeah.
Of course, they're there for other emergencies,
Well,
but
yeah.
yes, we made sure that the carpentry, yes, had one in there.
Any more? Yeah. Okay. All right, next we have superintendent's report.
Yeah, so it'll be pretty brief because I felt like I've talked right much. We have had a great opening to the 25-26 school year, and at the end of next week, we will be halfway through the first quarter, believe it or not. So enrollment numbers, we are at 1146 plus about 67 pre-K students. I will tell you that our budget is based on 1170, so we are lower than what we projected in our budget numbers. And that is due to an unexpected smaller kindergarten class. We determined that by averages over the past years, and this one, for whatever reason, is off from those averages. But we still have some positions that have not filled, so when we look at budget overall, we're still in a very safe place when we're looking at budget. For our programs, we have 20 students enrolled at the Chesapeake Bay Governor's School. We have 23 students enrolled at Bridging Communities. 9 students are participating in the JROTC program in King and Queen County. We have 4 students enrolled in welding at RCC, and we have 8 students who are completing their high school courses at Compass Academy. So that's an overview of where we are number-wise to open this school year. That's all I have for a report, yeah.
Okay. Any questions for Superintendent? Okay, no? Next, we have old business and the old business. New business. All right, so at this time, we will go into closed meeting. In pursuant of the Code of Virginia, the board will go into closed session to discuss personnel matters, student matters, and legal matters. May I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Moving proper second, all in favor?
Aye.
We are now in closed session.
They'll go back. Okay, I'll have to find mine.
Daniel requested a definition of trespassing, and they don't want, Dr. Sykes don't want to define, because when you get too specific, you're held to the policy. So when it's good for them, there's no definition, but on our side, all of a sudden, they can manipulate the policy the way they see fit. I didn't like that. Yes, and she's not, she doesn't want to define, she don't. Yes. It's just like when they came
motion to go out of close?
So moved.
Second.
Moving properly second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. Pursuant to the Code of Virginia, the board discussed personnel matters, student matters, and legal matters during closed sessions. Matters discussed in closed session have been added to the consent agenda and other parts of the agenda as action and information items. Board members, please certify that only lawful matters were discussed in closed session. Please respond by roll call.
Dr. Burnett,
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mrs. McMurtry,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
and Ms. Robbins.
Yes.
Okay. May I have,
Consent.
on the consent agenda?
So,
Motion on the consent agenda.
so moved that we accept it as written.
Okay.
Second.
Moving proper second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so carried. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moving properly second, all in favor?
Aye.
We are now adjourned.